When you form an incarnation, when you form a personality, an ego structure, in order to experience physical reality, it is generally composed of definitions, beliefs, of emotions, of thought patterns, behaviors that comprise what you think of yourself as the physical person, the physical identity that you have. Those definitions are the blueprint level that determines what it is you are capable of experiencing physical reality to be. So beliefs, by their nature, by design, have to contain the ability, have to contain the resonance and the frequencies to get you to buy into them strongly, or you can't really have the focus necessary to believe what it is they're telling you and have a physical experience that is representative of that specific particular belief. So all beliefs will make themselves seem to be, in some ways, the only belief at that moment that it is possible to have. Now, being that you have both positive and negative beliefs, when you have the positive belief, in your mind, it's not really such a big deal that it is convincing you, or doesn't really need to convince you, of the good times you're having, of the good feelings that you're experiencing. But because really, truly, deep down, and also in your higher mind, so to speak, you really know the truth, that you really are infinite, eternal, indestructible beings who are absolutely worthy of the unconditional love and support of creation, because you really do know that in your heart of hearts, negative beliefs have to work very, very hard and very, very specifically in order to allow you to buy into the willing suspension of disbelief about that truth, in order for you to experience the concept of polarity. It's actually very, very difficult innately to buy into something negative about your true being. So, negative beliefs have to rely on a series of tricks and tools. They have to specifically target certain ideas and experiences within you and magnify, amplify, get you to focus on them in a very specific way in order for you to actually even let go of the notion that you are this worthy being and actually convince you that you're not worthy, convince you that life is a struggle, convince you that things aren't easy. Because you know deep down they actually are. You know deep down in your natural self that things are very simple. And so, in order to experience the idea of polarity, in order to experience the idea of physical reality as an experience where you go through a process of forgetting who you are in order to remember who you are from a new point of view so you can expand your understanding of yourself, you make yourself, shall we say, available to all of the different ideas and negative beliefs that can exist within the realm of forgetfulness. Thus, working through those negative beliefs, transforming those negative beliefs into positive ones, transforming darkness into light, transforming limitation into freedom is the entire point. And so you will usually start with some form of negative belief that is representative of the theme you chose to explore in this life, that will raise its head in all the challenges that crop up that are representative of that theme in your life. But again, because a large part of being able to rediscover yourself from a new point of view is the fact that you have imposed forgetfulness upon yourself as a way of being able to do that, then the negative beliefs can seem from time to time to be very, very strong, very powerful, very profound. Now, of course, they are only deriving their power from you, but they are giving you the opportunity to explore the kind of scenarios that as an unlimited being you otherwise would not really be capable of exploring. Nevertheless, now that you are really approaching the end of the cycle of negativity and going more into the cycle of positive awareness, awakening, expansion of consciousness, now is the time to begin to truly remember that all the negative beliefs that you may have been dealing with, and some of the ones you may continue to deal with for a little while longer in your life, are really, really just ideas, in a sense, really smoke and mirrors, and that they really have to work very, very hard and focus very, very strongly on very specific issues within you in order to get you to buy into the idea that you are not worthy, in order to get you to buy into the idea that you should not investigate them, because they are, by again design, attempting to perpetuate themselves, attempting to reinforce themselves, attempting to make it seem as if they are the only reality that's possible. And when that idea comes from the negative side, they have many, many, many tools and tricks at their disposal to get you to buy into that scenario. Let us begin to examine some of those tools and tricks and expand upon them a little bit further so that you can really lock into this idea. Nania? Would you be of assistance in this?
Convince you no other belief is as real.
All right, so we have touched on this a little bit. One of the first things that a negative belief must do to get you to stop looking elsewhere for an idea is convince you that they are really representative of reality and everything else is a fantasy. Next.
Convince you no other belief is possible.
If, when they attempt to convince you that only they are real, and yet you still might have enough self-empowerment to go looking elsewhere and extract yourself from that belief, they will, as I said, amp up the power, magnify the power, and attempt to convince you that no other belief is possible.
Convince you positive beliefs are negative.
This is a very sneaky one. Because again, what they will do to convince you to stay exactly where they want you is they will color and filter an idea that might be representative of your truth, of your excitement, and make it appear to be something that is not, in fact, may make it appear to be something quite scary that you would want to stay away from. That's another trick they have to keep you exactly where they want you.
Convince you negative beliefs are positive.
This is the other side of the coin. Not only do they have to convince you that the positive beliefs are negative, but they have to convince you that they have your best interests at heart so that you will seek them out. Anytime you encounter a true positive reality that they have convinced you is scary, they will then also augment that with, oh, there, come here. I understand you. You're safe over here. I'll protect you from that big, bad positive belief. Making themselves appear to be the hero to which you will gravitate.
Convince you to take negative things personally.
Many times the idea is that when you see other people who are going through negative issues, dealing with negative issues, you will understand that people who are afraid to dive deep in themselves and explore those issues will often project their own issues on other people, such as yourself. And if you don't have the wherewithal to neutralize the idea and recognize the difference between something that is actually your issue and something that is their issue, the negative belief may in fact convince you that what they're telling you about you is actually true, when in fact all they're actually doing is talking about themselves. Many people will resent being shown an example of what they believe they have failed at if they see someone succeeding at things they believe they cannot attain, and will project that resentment on others in the form of blaming others, or saying others have the very negative traits that they themselves actually have but are in denial about within themselves because they're afraid to look at it based on what their negative beliefs have told them they should not do. You should not look at this. So the idea of neutralizing this is to remember not to take things personally. It's always wise to listen to someone and see if their advice can be used as advice, or their perspective might be representative of something you need to look at. But if you realize that it is simply their issue, then the negative belief will do everything in its power to keep you in the negativity by convincing you that what they're telling you about you, that is a negative idea, is actually true. You have to learn to tell the difference between your issues and theirs.
Convince you to blame others for your negative experience.
Yes, again, this is the other side of that coin. From the person that's doing the blaming and the accusing and the projecting is, again, the negative belief will keep you in denial about the fact that you are dealing with that negative belief, because it makes itself seem to be very scary, and therefore you can't look at that because it'll get even scarier. It'll get bigger and growl at you if you come close. So in order to preserve yourself, it activates the idea of your survival mechanism and says, this isn't about you. It must be caused by someone else. So blame someone else, project someone else for the things you are scared about and fearful about within yourself, so that you don't have to look at it. You can just foist it off on someone else, and then it isn't your problem anymore.
Convince you that you will suffer if you change your belief.
Oh yes, this is a good one. The idea of the tortures of the damned, allowing you to know that you are safe where you are. And this is another way of painting a positive reality in an extremely negative light by saying, look, even though you may not really be absolutely happy, you are comfortable and safe. And if you change from where you are, no matter how negative you may realize it is, I'm convincing you that where you think you want to go is going to be so much more difficult, so much scarier, that you really want to stay with what is familiar, because you are going to really suffer if you really try for that thing that you really prefer. And in fact, you may even fail at it, which would make you even more miserable. So why not just stay here where it's comfortable and safe? In my clutches.
Convince you you'll feel less lonely if others reinforce the negative belief.
This again is the idea of misery loves company. If you feel that you are in the idea of a negative state, a misery state, but you want to feel the idea that you are not alone so that you don't have to feel this by yourself, then you will invite in others who are just as miserable, and you will invite them to make you even more miserable, and you them, so that you can stay in a state that seems to be the common state, and thus, since everyone's doing it, I don't need to change. That's the idea. Look, everyone's doing it. Why do you need to be different? We're all miserable. Just stay that way.
Convince you it's too difficult to change.
Again, this goes hand in hand with some of the things we have already said, but this can be done in a variety of ways. And again, they will pinpoint within you beliefs that you may already have bought into, and they will amplify and magnify those specific things that you've already found to be difficult and make them seem even more difficult if you go in a different direction.
Convince you that it's impossible to change.
Again, same idea. It is simply against the laws of nature. You are what you are who you are. Don't rock the boat. There's nothing you can do about it.
Convince you to impart negative meaning to all situations.
Of course, because if you suddenly realize that everything is actually neutral and you can actually choose the meaning and get the effect based on the meaning, well, then the negative belief has lost its hold on you because suddenly you've neutralized it and it's just like any other belief. So it will again convince you that the only realistic thing to do is to impart negative meaning to every situation that looks in any way, shape, or form like anything you have ever been taught should be defined as negative, and not even allow you the chance to think that it could be defined in any other way. This is what everyone says this means. Why, again, go against the grain? You know that this is a bad thing. Everyone says this is a bad thing. So obviously it must actually be a bad thing. So please don't try to redefine it, because then you will just look silly. You will look like you are pie in the sky fantasy. Everyone knows what the reality actually is.
Convince you to feel powerless to change by diminishing ability.
Again, if you allow yourself to be in the grip long enough of certain negative beliefs, they will actually make you feel that your energy is being drained away anytime you move in the direction of something that might be positive, to convince you that really you don't have the ability to do this. They will give you tiredness in a sense. They will make you feel like it's just not worth it. They will make you feel like this is going to be a real struggle, a real effort. They will make you actually feel weaker in a sense, because they give you more power by staying in the negative side, and they take that energy away when you move toward the positive side. It's not that you actually are weaker, it's just that by comparison they make it appear as if you're weaker, because they infuse you with so much power when you come back in their direction.
Convince you to feel helpless to change by amplifying fear.
And again, they will prey upon the idea of any other negative belief that might generate the actual experience of fear, and they will pump power and energy into that fear to amplify it so much that you become so terrified, so frozen with terror about moving in the positive direction that you simply can do nothing about it. Or at least make it seem as if that's the case.
Convince you it's in your best interest to imagine the worst outcome.
Again, this goes hand in hand with the concept that you are being more realistic if you always imagine the worst. Because again, otherwise it reinforces the idea that if you don't look at life that way, people will think that you're some kind of Pollyanna, that you're not realistic, that you don't have your feet planted firmly on the ground, that you can't be trusted with things because you have a flighty imagination, so on and so forth, that you just live in a fantasy world. So by imagining the worst first, people will see you as, oh yes, the very realistic assessment, because that's the way everyone knows the world is, and then you'll be taken seriously. But again, that's the trap, because everyone would like to be taken seriously. Negative beliefs will equate the idea of being taken seriously with the idea of projecting always the worst case scenario for yourself, and pretty soon that becomes your habit.
Convince you that they have your best interests at heart.
Absolutely, as we've already touched on, the idea that, look, I'm taking care of you here. I'm not going to let harm come to you. I know that's a big bad world out there, and if you go and try and live your dreams in that big, black void of the unknown, well, I'm looking out for you. I'm protecting you. I'm keeping you from that big bad void with all of the monsters that are hiding there for you. I really, really am the one that is behind you. I have your back. I have your best interest at heart. So again, please stay in this vibration, because otherwise, well, if I'm not with you, who knows what might happen to you that would even be scarier than I can even imagine.
Convince you that the end justifies the means.
This is a big one in your society, because Negative beliefs will convince you again by turning around the idea that positive is negative and negative is positive, will get you to start acting in negative ways, thinking that it's actually going to result in a positive outcome, which is simply not possible. The end and the means are one. So negative behavior will become the norm, and negative beliefs will constantly reinforce that negative behavior as an actual means to a positive end, which will never happen. Because it will then keep you searching and keep you searching and keep you thinking, yes, this is all going to work out, even though you're going about things in a very negative way. It will only lead to the amplification of more negativity, which is exactly what the negative belief wants to happen.
Reinforce their reality through negative synchronicity.
Synchronicity abounds all the time. But of course, the idea is that when you're in a negative state, the kind of synchronous reflections you're going to get are also going to be reflective of that negativity. So this is what you call bad luck in your language, where people say, well, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. The idea, again, is that when you're in a negative state, of course, that's going to be reinforced by synchronicity, because synchronicity is just a representation of a mechanism that is neutral, and it doesn't have a mind of its own, and it doesn't really care what kind of energy you put into the machine. The machine can only churn out what kind of energy you put in. So negative beliefs know this, and they will use the negative synchronicity when you're in the negative state, when they've got you in that negative state, and the negative synchronicity crops up to say, see? Told you so! The world is a big bad place. Look at this. You just need to follow what I'm telling you and better things will happen. That's where they use that other idea that just keep doing these negative things and something good will happen. But negative synchronicity will keep piling up and piling up and piling up, and they will have to work harder and harder and harder and harder to convince you that this is still the road to take. This is why so many people on your planet find that when they finally get to the point where they are so sick and tired of being in that state, they will finally allow themselves to change. But the reason you get so sick and tired of being in that state is because you've been in that state for so long, because the negative belief was capable of convincing you to stay in that state much longer than you really had to. That's why you're so exhausted and finally allow yourself to change. This is one of the loopholes in the idea of the negative belief, is that it will exhaust you to the point where one way or another you will finally exit that state of being. But you can exit it positively or you can exit it negatively. Sometimes the negative exit you refer to as suicide.
Prevent you from seeing positive opportunities.
As we have often said, you cannot perceive what you are not the vibration of first. If you are of a certain vibration that is negative, you simply are incapable of imagining positive opportunities. They're just invisible to you. Just don't think that way from a negative state. But when you're in a positive state, then all the opportunities that could be positive will show up in the positive synchronicity. And you'll have the capability of imagining what they may be and even creating some opportunities on your own. But again, the negative belief will do its best to make sure that you stay in a state where you can't even imagine that there might be a positive opportunity. You just won't understand the language of positive reality by steeping yourself in the negative energy.
Prevent you from finding the core belief by getting you to focus on secondary ones.
This is a favorite trick, so to speak, of the deep core negative belief, is that it will surround itself with all sorts of shells and layers of other secondary and tertiary level beliefs, allowing you to think, well, if they're going to come looking, I'm going to make sure they find this and they find that. It's red herrings and decoys everywhere, so that you think, oh, I found the negative belief. Oh, goody, it's gone now. And you move on with your life and suddenly find that your behavior is the same and your feelings are the same. And you wonder, what the heck happened? I thought I let that go. Well, there is the negative belief deep down in its little layer going, hee hee hee. They haven't found me. And it will keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that until you finally achieve the level of willingness that is necessary for you to just break through all those different levels and really look for the core definition, which when you find it and let that go will allow the secondary and tertiary level negative beliefs to just collapse, because now they have no more foundation.
Distract you from investigating your beliefs.
Oh, that's a big one too. Yes, I am going to go about investigating those. Oh, shiny. Oh, what was I doing? Oh, yes, I'm going to get to the bottom of these oh, that looks like fun. The negative belief will do that too. Look at that. Oh, look at that. You've been wanting to do that for a while, right? I'm your pal. I'm your buddy. Let's go do that. That looks like much more fun than looking for me. It will do anything it can to prolong the process, in other words.
Convince you to believe they're not doing any of these things.
Exactly. As somebody has said, colloquially speaking, one of the greatest tricks of the devil is convincing you he doesn't exist. Yes? So the idea is that this is really what's happening, and that's what that phrase comes from, is that negative beliefs will also impart to you such a willing suspension of disbelief that you actually will not even see or be capable of imagining that such a belief even exists. You will think this is coming from the outside. This is a true victim mentality now, where you think everything is against me. This is paranoia. This is saying the world is to blame. This is saying I am a victim and everything is happening to me in life instead of happening through me in life. This is where the negative belief really gets you to believe that there isn't something happening within your consciousness, that it's all real out there and it's all coming from out there, and there is no negative belief. This is just the way the world is. It's a cruel, mean place. Get over it.
Convince you to deny that negative beliefs exist within you.
Same thing.
Convince you to believe you're the exception to the ability to change.
Absolutely. This is, again, an amplification of the state of arrogance, where, oh yes, and the state of victimization, where, oh yes, I know you could probably change if you really wanted to. I know you could do it. Everyone can do it, but somehow I can't. I'm the exception to the rule. That's actually, even though it seems like a victim position, is actually a state of high arrogance, that you would think that out of all beings in creation, you're the only one who cannot change. That's calling attention to yourself in a very negative way, which amplifies the negative energy within you.
Convince you to feel comfortable with negativity.
Oh yes, if you live with it long enough and it has done its job to scare you that every other direction is going to be worse, then you will settle down into that couch and it will start to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat away at you very slowly over time until you find that you and the couch have fused into one thing. And now if you want to go and do something, now it's convinced you that you really can't even move, because now not only do you have the weight of your own self, but you have the weight of the couch. And now the couch has fused to the floor of the house. And now you really can't do anything about it, so you might as well just stay there and enjoy it. Enjoy wallowing in your misery. This is what happens when you call it wallowing in misery. You just give up, give over all your power, and this is just the way it is. And you just fade away.
Convince you to believe no positive tools will work.
This is also a big one, because again, the idea is that they paint all positive ideas in a negative light. And when you expose yourself, or even have the possibility or probability of being exposed to tools that could help you, they will really work hard to convince you that those things are just falderall, it's just wishful thinking, those things never really work at all. Please don't even go that way, that's really just a fantasy. You're living in fantasy land. You understand?
Convince you to distort and view positive information as negative.
Again, a variation of the idea of positive beliefs, where again, it won't even allow you to actually comprehend some of the information that you are receiving that could be helping you move in a positive direction. It will distort it, filter it, twist it in such a way that you will really see it as something other than what it is, and again, not be capable of taking advantage of the positive information. It will make it seem discordant. Because you are in a negative state, out of alignment, out of phase with your true vibration, anytime the true vibration approaches you, it will get louder too and create such a cacophony of distortion. It will then make your ears bleed to listen to it, so you'll move away from that positive information. It will make it seem that you are so vibrationally incompatible with that it must be a bad thing, because you are wonderful and you are good, and anything coming to you that makes you feel this way must be bad. So please ignore it. Please run away from it as fast as you possibly can, back into my arms, where you are nice and safe and cozy forever.
And finally, convince you to justify keeping the negative belief.
When the negative belief has really done its job well and really convinced you that that's the safest place, Anything and everything will be used as a justification to maintain it. Any negative feeling you have will be focused on so that you don't have to focus on the belief itself. Any negative thoughts will be focused on that you can justify the idea. You will look at your history and anything that might have happened in what you call the past that was negative to say, but look, this happened to me, so it will happen again. But look, I must be held back by habits and patterns that I was taught. But look, this is the way the world is, so who am I to say different? You will find any reason at all to justify all of these tools and tricks and keep the negative belief in charge of what it is you think, what it is you feel, what it is you say, and how it is you behave. You will now be working as the negative belief's agent on its behalf, and you will really be its minion, doing its job along with it to continue to convince yourself that the negative belief is the best possible state of being for you. And then, in a sense, the negative belief can start to relax because it's convinced you that you have to do its job for it. You now work for it, and not the other way around. Fascinating, isn't it? All right. So, before we go on to the idea of the neutralizers, please understand that these things have been, as we have said, handed down and handed down and handed down. But that's not a reason why they should continue. This is just an idea. And you have projected these things, and the negative beliefs have projected themselves into all forms of archetypal iconography and imagery to make sure that they remain in the forefront of your consciousness and right in front of your face all the time. And that's okay, because polarity is going to be everywhere you look. But the key is recognizing that all of the presentations that the negative beliefs make are only that. They're just presentations, they're just symbols, they're just representations, and they don't have to contain any solidity, any validity in the sense of believing that they're true for you. They are valid as beliefs, but you don't have to prefer them, and you don't have to invalidate them. You just need to allow them to be neutral.